My name is Charlene Yomo, and I'm pleased to be here on behalf of Global City Unity. And the purpose of this session is getting Chicago united. And if you pay attention to the propaganda that's being put out in the atmosphere every day, all day long, we are divided, people are hating each other. But you know, I spent some time driving for Uber, and I have discovered in driving for Uber that this city is much more united than we even know. Uber has something called pooling, where people just get together, they don't know each other, and they share a ride. Sometimes that's blacks with whites, with Orientals, with Russians, with people from Poland, and they have wonderful conversations with each other. So we are being victimized by propaganda, the propaganda that desires to keep people separated from one another. And I want to spend some time talking about this because as a people, we people of color in the United States, we are really victimized by propaganda. You hear about the gap all the time between the high-achieving European people and the low-achieving black people. Well, knowledge came from Africa. The only universities that there were in the world at one time were in Timbuktu. That's where just outside of Egypt, that's where the Greeks went to study. And when the subject is brought up about low achieving people, the pyramids, the Sphinx, all that stuff required a knowledge of geometry, algebra, astronomy, astrology. All that stuff was completed between 5 and 7,000 BC. This is 2016 for the era of people that we're living with now, the people who have the power. The people out of the Teutonic, meaning Germanic, and they took power from the Romans. The Romans took power from the Greeks, and the Greeks were the first exterior force to overrun Egypt. Egypt, while it was still black, was a very welcoming place, and that's how it ended up changing colors. They were not racist people, so as people moved near them that were of a different color, they absorbed them, they assimilated them, and they turned from black to brown to the diverse colors that you see there today. I say this because ever since Obama was elected president, and that was a cultural phenomenon. The cultural trait of African people is said to be xenophiliac, which means lover of xeno people. Xenophobia is suspicion and sometimes hatred of people who are different from one, and that was a characteristic of European culture. So that when Obama was elected president, by many more white people than black people, that was a cultural phenomena. And now we're dealing with a backlash from that. I think things are going to get worse, not just because of Donald Trump, but because of what he represents. Because that put the fear in those people that they are actually losing power. And they are. That's God's decision. We're powerless over that. I think God has gotten a little tired of the injustices that people are suffering, and the same mistakes that have been made by powers that preceded this one are being made over and over again. It seems as though nobody ever learns. However, I think one of the things that we as African Americans need to concentrate on now is to reconnect with our African roots. That doesn't mean that everything we learn about who we were before we came here, we have to go back and do everything the same. No, we are not going to do that because we contributed to our situation as it stands. So we're going to pick and choose that which is good. We're going to resuscitate or bring back to life, and that which is not, we're going to leave it alone. It's so important. I want to talk about, if we're going to talk about an African culture, country, let's talk about the Congo for a moment. The Congo is maybe 2 or 3 times the size of the United States. And the original Congo kingdom was even greater than that. It was Angola, Congo Kinshasa, Congo Brazzaville, and part of Zambia. And I believe that Congo was part of the original Ethiopia. The Congo was only colonized for 85 years. West Africa, 400 years. East Africa, 2,000 years. And after 85 years, those Congo people created somebody just like Malcolm, and they kicked the colonial powers out. Now, that's not to say that everyone is free from this colonial system. We are still suffering from this. But there are a lot of people in the world, regardless of their color, who want to be one with other people. They do not want to be against people who are different. They want to be one. We've got to work with the positive forces, and we've got to start at home with our youth. These young people who are out here killing each other. Why are they doing that? They're doing that because they don't see any value in black life. And they're victims of propaganda. We're being told that we're living on the bottom. We didn't contribute anything. This country would be on its knees if it hadn't been for all the things that people out of Africa contributed to this country. It's just now coming out about the woman who helped the space program by assuring them that they could fly, okay? And now, just in the last couple of days, Oprah's doing this new movie about this woman who they took her cells and harvested them and have created all these medicines from her, let alone all the inventions that were done and created during the slave era and after that we were never allowed to claim, get paid for. We've got to free ourselves from this mentality. We've got to stop for a moment and figure out how do free people do things as opposed to how slaves do things, because a lot of what is bothering us and is keeping us back today are characteristics that we picked up during slavery. Another thing that I want to just bring up just at the moment, we need God in our lives. God is. Now, maybe you don't believe in God. Maybe you never felt God's presence. Well, I have. So you can think what you want to think, but I know God is. And one thing that's happening that as much as we need God, there are a lot of people who are proclaiming that they have been called to preach. You know when someone's been called to preach because you can feel the presence of God around them. To some people, this is just a way for them to make some money. And people, these false prophets, are chasing a lot of people away from God. That is the result of being a false prophet. So we've got to do some work. Fortunately, I was here watching an earlier segment when a preacher was actually talking about ministers who've been called, and I just happened to make that statement, and he was very pleased about that. We need God, and we've got to determine how do we know when we are in the presence of godly people. We've got to begin to reach out to each other. We've got to come out of those houses and sit outside with those young people so that the whole family's out there, so that there's an atmosphere of community, so that we can begin to stop some of the negatives that are taking place in the absence of no authority. Love is a very important ingredient, and there's a lot of effort being put forth to make us dislike ourselves. It's taken a long time for us to get to the point where we're doing all this killing like we are today, but over the years I've heard where the little girl chose the little white doll, she didn't want the little black doll. I saw pictures where kids were beautiful little black kids. They were told, oh, you're beautiful, but it had been ingrained into them because they were dark, they were not nice looking. And we've allowed this to go on, and it's just grown and grown and grown. We've got to pay attention. And the other thing, now listen, I came from a family with a lot of men. I was the first grandchild, so confrontation is comfortable for me. But I found out that I had to step away from that because that was beginning to, being good at that was beginning to damage my ability to project the love that I needed for my girls to feel when they were little. And that's what's happening to a lot of us women. We're so involved and so caught up in this war thing, and it's almost impossible to escape it because there's so much negative stuff that's being put on our men every day, and then they come on to us. So we've got to really, really be aware of what is our God-given role. God gave woman the responsibility of carrying the seed. The seed grows in us, and we carry it for 9 months. That is a responsibility. We are supposed to be responsible, first of all, to that. And all the love that comes out of that is to emanate to our husbands and those people who are around us. We've got to treat love and all the good things that God gave us as a garden that we have to weed and water and move the soil around. This takes effort. This can't just be done incidentally. I want to say also that we need to address the fact that the society at large has no problem talking about the black thug, but they changed Jesus from a man of color into a Germanic-looking man, and we say nothing about it. You hear a little bit over here. We need to actively project that. That needs to be active because that too can do a lot for changing the negatives that are around us. We also need to spend time, and if we can't personally do it, we need to make sure that all the pieces that are needed to help our children to be healthy, whether we can personally be involved in everything, we don't have to be. But if we join hands with our neighbors, when we join hands with our families, when we actively work to keep a positive and loving environment around our children, then we can give the children the kind of things that they need to grow into happy, productive, and loving young people. That's not just going to happen by accident. I want to share something else, too, that I learned last year. There was a brother by the name of Prince Amiel. He was one of those brothers who left here back, I think, in the 60s and went to Israel, saying that they were the original people. Well, come to find out, all that area around Israel, that was all Africa at one point, and I knew that from studying history, but the reality of what that meant didn't hit me until I met this gentleman. And so then when you start to say, Pharaoh, let my people go, you're talking about black people talking to a black person. The Pharaoh was black, and so were those Jews. Those people were displaced beginning with Alexander the Great, and then later the Romans. So anyway, what Prince Amiel, that was one awakening, that a part of the awakening that he helped me to have. But the other awakening was as power left Egypt and went on into Greece, the African people said that the heart was the center of the body because that's where the blood goes, and the memory of everything is in the blood. Well, when power went to Greece, they changed the center of the body to the id, or the ego. That is tremendous, and that is something that is killing us right now, our egos. Egos makes it seem as though if someone says something that's different from what you say, they're negating your reality, when really from the African perspective, it's like a patchwork quilt or a potluck. We all put together and we have come up with a beautiful patchwork quilt. That's for our lives. Those are the kinds of things that we need in order for us to begin to change back into a loving, caring community and families. What we need for our children. I'll be back in just a moment. Was about the amount of pressure that is now being put. It's going to be much more difficult. Ever since Obama became president, the reactionary forces, the forces who are against all things that have to do with social justice and equality, the situation that we're in, even though I'm speaking from an African American perspective, it's about humanity. God is the God of all of us. But I think that we are the teachers in this. I can remember when Malcolm walked the earth, and I loved Malcolm X. I loved him. And but when he first became, when he first started talking, he talked about how we were worshiping the religion of the slave master. That's the way it appeared. Now that perhaps might have perverted a bit of our Christianity, but Christianity came from Africa, and it was being lived and practiced for millennia before Jesus ever walked the earth. So that when our ancestors were re-exposed to that through the slave system, it was familiar to them and they grabbed it again. Now, let me go back and reconnect to this whole situation with Obama. I believe now even it's been bad enough, the kinds of things that have been put on our black men, shooting them. They've been doing this. But now it's going to be even more difficult. I think they're going to do everything possible to keep us down. And again, starting with our men. I happened to have been on the south side yesterday, and I saw these men protesting. It was right there at, I forgot, maybe it was 22nd Street. No, I was on 63rd Street, almost to the L. And these brothers were protesting. There was it's something about a Skinder construction company, a project out there. They have all these white men working and not one black face anywhere. We cannot allow these people to come in our community and no black men are working. Everybody needs to be out there protesting, not just the men. The women need to protest too, because you want your man to have a job. You know, we need to do this as a community. We've got to set some standards for our community. We've got to stand up. And that's a part of what I was talking about, the slave mentality. Only slaves would allow their kids to just be getting killed and not stand up. That's what happened in slavery. We're not slaves anymore. Stand up. You couldn't go out and kill a lot of Koreans and they not do something about that. You couldn't go out and kill a lot of Chinese, a lot of Frenchmen, or any Polish people or anybody else without something being said. We've got to begin to, we are addressing it, but then they're ridiculing Black Lives Matter. We need to do a whole revamp. We need to talk about and listen, talk about inventions. The lottery is nothing but policy. And I remember when the mafia was taking policy from black people. Now the government has it. What are we getting out of this? When are we winning? We need to sit down and talk with each other in a calm way. I think it might even be a very good idea if we begin by remember when the South Africans had that Truth and Reconciliation, where people were able to get up and talk about things? We've never gone through that. We have never healed. We've got to acknowledge the pain, the suffering, the dysfunctional awfulness that we experienced, and begin to heal from those things so that we can move forward, so that we can love each other as we should. We don't love each other as we should because we've allowed that insignificance of black life to sink into our own minds and our beings. We are somebody, and we need to stand up as though we are. Again, I don't know how long this protesting will be going on over there, but there should not be any groups of people coming into our community to work and not one of our men is involved in those jobs. We need to do something about that. They need the work, and we need them to be able to help us. I wanted to also say that when it comes to, I have to ask myself, who really is a Christian? Who really does believe in God? All the religions came from the Egyptian mystery system. Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Now, what other religions are there? Oh, Confucianism, that we didn't do that one. But I don't know anything else. The Baha'i, that came from, that's an offshoot of Islam, Baha'u'llah. But we also, in transcending into this culture through slavery and losing our languages, there are many things and aspects of life that we have and we feel, but there's no expression for that in English, because the English were the last people to be civilized. How in the world would they have a word for something that we've been living in for tens of thousands of years? That's something we need to think about. We need to think very much about that and do what we need to do to be whole. And being whole means we need to investigate our original characteristics, our original cultures. And when we do that, let me tell you what happened to me. When I became involved with the Africans, really began to become involved with them, for the first time it was like doors opening up inside of me. Things that I didn't even know they were there, but I didn't know what the significance was until I connected with the African, and through that connection, the African revealed it to me. Just think about that. Think about that. And that will give you reason to want to delve into your past, into your history, into a reality that is still living today. We have gone from being a spiritual people in the loss of our language into a material people. That too is holding us back, because the material will come as long as you maintain your spiritual connection with God. And with that, I want to wish you adieu until the next time. God be with you, and God bless all of us.
Just picture me rolling all these blunts that be flowing. Catch my drift, catch my wind, catch a nigga vibe into classical violins. Beethoven while I'm rolling up that violin. Yeah, I smoke to your mesh and your body is pleasure, your body is saying, nigga, we can do whatever. I'm like, baby, let me get it, let me push it to its limit while I'm all up in it. I'm smoking violins, I'm smoking violins, yeah. I'm smoking violins, yeah. Said I'm smoking violins, yeah. Yeah, yeah, oh. I'm smoking violins, yeah. I'm smoking violins, yeah. Said I'm smoking violins, yeah. Yeah, yeah, oh. I can't deny the way I feel. Oh, like now you feel so real. Let me introduce you to my stainless steel. No doubt I aim to kill. Every time I stare into the sky, I swear that I can see your eyes. I'm so high I can kiss the sky. You do me so right. I'm smoking violins, yeah. I'm smoking violins. See your body feels so good to me. Yeah, yeah, oh. I'm smoking violins, yeah. I'm smoking violins, yeah. Still I'm smoking violins, yeah. Yeah, yeah, oh. Can I have a minute of your attention? See, I have intentions for you, girl. I have a picture. See, I have a vision. And my mission is to save you, girl. And write a vision. Picasso tripping and Van Gogh tripping. Let me paint a world, yeah. I'll be there when it's dark outside. When you need me, girl, I'm down to ride. 'Cause I'm gonna love you right. Promise I'ma make it alright. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know love can treat you so right. Come on, girl, let's take this flight. You ain't gotta worry about the things we do. When I'm with you, it's just me and you. It ain't the same old thing. I'ma treat you right. No, you ain't gotta worry about the things we do. When I'm with you, it's just me and you. It ain't the same old thing. I'ma treat you right. You know you be looking good. You know you look right. You know you be looking good, baby, day and night. You know you be looking good. You out of sight. You know you be looking good. Let me get a bite. Gotta have you closer. Keep my loving tight. I'm not just posted up, girl. I'm here on side. Call me when you need me. We gon' talk time, my sweet lady. Yeah. Let me hear your mind, baby. You're white. Pour up this glass, come on, say this wine.